This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust that for you today, this will be like a vitamin or a supplement for your heart and mind. And wherever you receive podcasts from, would you subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a rating and a brief written review? It will enable others to be able to locate this podcast. You can get this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Podbean, all of the places where podcasts are received. It would be a blessing if you would subscribe and pass on the word. And if you'd like to get on my calendar and have a discussion to see if I can come alongside and help you to reach your dreams, I'm looking for the next level of leaders. Just go to drronblake.com/call. You'll get on my calendar and I will give you a call. Interesting that I lead in with the idea of a calendar. One of the most underutilized tools in your repertoire, leader, may very well be the calendar. I know we're all looking for the next and best and greatest productivity app or leadership app, or looking to get into some kind of a focus group that will help us in our leadership. I want to deposit for your thinking today that the most underutilized tool that you have is your calendar. Now, as I'm speaking to you today, I have no idea, I have no way of knowing exactly what your calendar looks like, what kind you use, how often or how well you utilize it. But I'm telling you, to get from where you are today to the future, one of the tools that will help you the most is your calendar. Here's what I've discovered over the years about the future. It always seems to arrive unannounced. Art Buchwald said, "It can be for you and I the best or the worst of times, makes no difference. It's the only time we have." For many years, I kept my to-do list or my task list and my calendar as totally separate entities that hardly ever communicated or ever even crossed paths. And one day, I'm not exactly whether it was listening to someone, seeing someone else's calendar, but I caught on to the idea that I need to marry my to-do list or my task list and my calendar, and it would help me to be more effective, efficient, and to get things done. One of the things that the reason a calendar is so important is a calendar is a universal way of marking off and measuring time. Now, you'll say, Dr. Ron, that's pretty simple. But there are some reasons that we have time marked off. And one of those is there are deadlines. If you are a book writer and you have a publisher who agrees to publish your book, they're going to give you deadlines. If you've ever went to school, college, graduate school, you'll know that one of the first things that a professor does, and I teach a class periodically, and one of the very first things that I do is I distribute to the students a syllabus. The syllabus not only talks about information like how to contact me, how many weeks we're going to be going, what are the books that you need, the projects that you're going to need to work on, but there are deadlines. This begins to put the parameters, the boundaries around the class in relationship to time and what needs to be done. I'm beginning to use GPS and maps on my phone, and there's one thing that they always have when I put in a destination where I'm traveling. It's the ETA, the estimated time of arrival. So there's even boundaries around my directions. In the old days, when I used to go to the library and check out library books, there was always right inside the book jacket was the time that the book had to be returned. Time is the parameter, the boundaries of our life. There is one effective well-known, nearly universal tool that helps us to manage that. It's simply called a calendar. Some of my effectiveness and efficiency really went up when I took my morning and evening routines and memorialized them on a calendar. Now, I have a couple of calendars that I use that I do sync, but one of those is my morning routines. And I've gone over this with you a few times, but for me, it involves prayer, Bible reading, some devotional reading, reading for a half hour, working with a planner to plan out some of the things that I'm working on. Exercise is a part of that, journaling and writing and creating blogs and even outlining future podcasts, just to name a few. But if I keep them on the task list and keep it separated from the calendar, there's going to be a problem, because either the calendar or the task list is going to become a master and the other is going to become a servant, or at least subservient. And I have found out that when I made appointments with myself, when I started and decided to get on this journey of getting in better health and exercising, I used to feel guilty going to the gym and exercising, thinking I should be working and that somehow this was a waste of time. A psychological something happened to me when I began to enter it into my own calendar and saw that it is okay to make an appointment with yourself. If you don't start with the basic building blocks of quiet time, and if you're a spiritual person, of spiritual reading and prayer and exercise, if you don't do that, you won't be around to make many other kinds of appointments. So I put my morning and my evening routines. On the evenings where I don't have to be at meetings in the evening, and oftentimes I do, but when I don't, I have my evening routine, including a time that I'm going to bed, and I'm very regimented about laying out clothes, laying out things for the next day, looking over what I'm going to do, where I'm going, and that is all memorialized on a calendar. Years ago, I was reading a productivity thing that was written by a Reverend Nelson Searcy. And he was the one where I finally got a hold of the idea that toward the end of the year, get your next year out. You know how many weeks vacation you have. Don't allow your family and your vacation to take your leftover time. Right before you begin to put anything else on the calendar, I would go in and begin to mark off, in this week, in this month, I'm going to take a vacation. I even mark my days off. The fact of the matter is, the calendar becomes the depository for every significant event in your life. I get down to it that I even have on my own personal calendar the day that I'm going to pay my bills. I pay my bills electronically, so a day certain, usually the last week or the next to last week of the month, I sit down and in one fell swoop, I make sure that all of my bills are going to be paid for that month. I take a to-do list, a task list item, and I put it right straight into my calendar. I'm even so specific now that if I am flying somewhere for a trip or a vacation, even the air flight, the name, the number, the airline, even that is on my calendar. I want to dig just a little bit deeper and also say that it's not just enough to tick off a bunch of tasks, a bunch of to-do lists. Are the things you're doing really important? Now, I understand there are certain things of being a member of a family, personal things you have to take care of, as well as at work, that just have to be done. There's not a lot of appeal to it. And at times we don't know that it really moves the ball forward a lot, other than the fact that it's just a part of what has to be done. But I want you to think more globally for a few moments and ask yourself, how many things did I do today? How many events that are on my calendar this week are actually helping me move toward my goal? You can't say you have goals and then take no daily or weekly actions that actually move you toward that goal. I would say if you're new to this, you ought to take a good afternoon off and just really reflect on what are the action steps that are needed that I can memorialize and put on my calendar that will help me reach my goals. Goals are not going to magically or mystically happen just because we had some nice warm thoughts. There's going to have to be actions and activities that lead us there. Again, I've already mentioned it, but let's come back to it. Yes, I do write things down. I carry a notebook with me. So if there's a new task or a promise that I've made, or something as mundane as I need to make sure I get that phone number into my contacts, I do write them on a list, but at the end of the day, the list is ticked off and it's put on my calendar. And if it's not specifically written on my calendar, there is a section where I say, today I have to do thus and so. This leads me to the next one, and that by putting my activities, my to-do list, my task list on my calendar, helps me then to block off time. If there's a project I'm working on, it's going to take more time than just doing a couple of little incidental things that need to be done. If it's something that I have to really think about and concentrate on, for me, because of the rhythm of my life, they need to go on my calendar earlier in the day when my mind is fresh and it's easier for me to focus. So I would work in blocks of time. You really can't focus, and regardless of what you say, I mean high level of concentration, probably more than 4 hours a day. Now, there's a lot of work that you and I do. Some of us have some travel in our work. Some of us, it's listening to what others are saying. But I'm talking about high level concentrated focus. You probably aren't going to be able to get more than 4 hours. I have finally found through trial and error that 25-minute blocks work really well for me on most things, and then a 5-minute break. And oftentimes I will come back and do another 25 minutes. So if you listen to what I'm saying, that would be at most 50 minutes of every hour. I take the 5 minutes to walk around, take a break, get a cup of coffee, whatever I need to do. But I work in blocks of time. And by having those items on my calendar, both the block of time as well as the project or the problem or the situation I'm working on, helps me not to ignore it and get down to the end of the day and say, oh, I was going to work on that today and it didn't happen. It happens now because my to-do list, my task list is married to my calendar and I block off the time. The other thing that I do is I have some batch time. You wouldn't be able to tell by looking at my calendar the difference between the blocks of time and batching time. But there's certain activities that I do. It may not mean much to you, but going through my emails and cleaning out my email inbox, responding, deferring, deleting, delegating what has come in. There's also a place where I put some words and things on Twitter and other places, LinkedIn. I block off the time to load up my buffer where I load those things. I also, during that same batch of time, these are sort of things that take about the same energy level and the same thought, is my Evernote. I look at Evernote to make sure that everything has been put in the proper folder, has the proper tags on it so that I'll be able to locate it later. That comes during my batching of time. One of the other side notes that I hadn't really thought about that really has been a benefit of taking my to-do list and putting it in my calendar and making them one and the same is I'm able readily to see what's going on, and I can say no to things if I don't really have that time that day. It doesn't mean that it's not significant, it doesn't mean that I don't want to do it, but it helps me to be able to say yes. And what I have discovered, by saying no to a few things, I'm able to say yes to a whole lot more significant things than I used to be able to do, because I have learned to manage my time by, again, putting my to-do or task list and my calendar together. My leadership friend, please do not forget to schedule family time and your own personal time. I've alluded to that at the earlier part of this podcast. But the calendar isn't just for work. Your calendar isn't just for others. It's for you as well. And don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be a high achiever that thinks if you don't have it just chocked full with work-related items that you're never going to make it in life. And also prioritize your spouse, your children, your friends. It's all right to schedule date nights. It's not all right, it's necessary and important to do so, and that's why you put it on your calendar. If there's anything that I'm trying to tell you, it's this. You need at a glance to be able to see the entirety that makes up your life, personal, spiritual, work, recreation, all in one spot. To me, a calendar, I know work-life balance is nearly impossible and that one level will get out of balance periodically depending where you are in life. But having a calendar where you put all of those things really does enable you to live a more balanced life. You have been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust today there's really has been like a vitamin or a supplement for your heart and mind. And wherever you receive podcasts, please sign up, subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, leave a rating and a brief written review, and I'm counting on you to help pass the word along. Remember, my leadership friend, you are really doing better than you think you are. You absolutely are. And until next time, this is Dr. Ron saying, have a great and blessed day.